If you clicked on this video, you're probably wondering the same thing I was a couple years ago. Should I fast and not tell anyone, or should I fast and tell people? And the answer is yes. Every situation is different. You see, a couple years ago, I would have struggled with it a lot. I would have been like, I can't tell anyone. And at one point, I was speaking with a couple different pastor friends of mine. And I was talking to them, and we agreed that at some point, it can be self-righteous if you don't tell others, if you pump yourself up in that way. And that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to fast for the correct purposes. But more than that, the thing is, when you fast, you should be doing it for spiritual purposes to get closer to God. And instead of basically doing it for vain or selfish reasons. If you're doing it for those reasons and you're doing it for health benefits or something, that's fine. But don't call it a spiritual fast. So the thing that I've noticed the most is that when I didn't tell people, there were some people that I probably should have and I didn't. So I went on a 40-day fast a while back, and it was an altered fast. It was a different version of a fast, and I'm not going to get into the details of it because you can watch the full video if you want. I'll try to put a link or something down here or up here, however you do that. But my point is, I learned a lot through that, but in that 40-day fast, I had to change kind of how I am, because I had certain days every week that I go to a family supper. And in that time, after so long, people started to notice, one person in particular, the person who was cooking the food. And that family member called me out of the blue one day and said, "Hey, are you mad at me?" And I said no. And she was like, "Is there anything that I'm doing wrong to where you don't want to eat? Are you on some special diet? Do I need to cook X, Y, or Z?" And I told her, "Oh, no, you're fine. I'm fasting." And that was the first time that I truly told somebody, kind of out of the blue. But I mean, people will pick up on it. Your coworkers will pick up on it. If they try to offer you food and say, "Hey, I'm going to the store. Do you need anything?" Little things like, "Hey, I bought your favorite candy bar," or whatever it is. Here it is for you. And so you're going to be tempted. You're going to have those times that it's going to be tempting. But my point in sharing all this is every situation is completely different. So I told my family member, I told her, "No, you're good. I'm fasting." And she was completely relieved. She had been nervous for over 2 or 3 weeks because she thought she was doing something wrong. And when you have a big servant's heart like she does, and you're serving through means of feeding others, then you feel like you're not doing your job. And so I don't think it's far-fetched to say that, because when people have that big heart, they really want to try to serve. But one way you can do that, for another example that I'll lead into, is if Larry Bob over here decides that he's going to do a fast, or there's even the Daniel fast, there's different fasts. Daniel fast is vegetables. And, you can look up more in depth, but the Daniel fast is mainly vegetables. And so if you're doing that and your coworker tries bribing you with cookies, and it seems innocent enough and you're in the break room, but she knows you eat cookies all the time, or that's your favorite thing, and she brings them to you, then you have an opportunity to, politely say, I'm sorry, so and so, I would love to, but right now I'm fasting. And then you can break it down and witness. And so don't be so self-righteous that you can't reach that person that you were kind of meant to witness to in that time. I think that that's very important, because sometimes we get so caught up in it that we miss the mark completely on spreading the gospel. And so if that's your way of spreading the gospel, you can be a light, especially if you're a good example and they look up to you. I was talking to a different pastor friend, and he was explaining to me when he was going through a fast. And honestly, that actually confirmed that I needed to fast, because I had felt a conviction too. But my point in sharing that is, when you fast, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Make sure you're being open and receptive. And also, every time your stomach growls, make sure you pray. Intercede for others. If there's some person that's popping up in your mind, especially when you're fasting, just pray for them. Or send them a Bible verse of encouragement. And I know sometimes that's difficult, especially if you know that they're not saved. But that might be the very thing that they still need that day. And fasting is one way to break that. And for me personally, if I do not fast every certain amount of days, then I have noticed that my spiritual life is weak. My physical, I guess, more temptations or fleshly temptations of food and food noise. Food noise is a huge one. Food noise is where you constantly think about food and what kind of food you're going to have. When you're fasting after the first 24 hours, then you don't need it. Like, your body kind of shuts down and it does its own thing to where you don't need it as much. Like, you don't crave it. I'll put it that way. And there's also a bunch of health benefits to fasting too, but I'm not a doctor. You can look it up for yourself. But another thing that I would like to add is that when I did fast during the 40-day fast, then I ended up having a dream. And I broke it down, I think, in the 40-day fast video. But long story short, I had eaten a piece of popcorn, and then I realized, like real time in my dream, and I said, I'm fasting, and I spit it out. And the thing is, I rebuked the popcorn right then. I don't even like popcorn. But my point is that you become hypersensitive when you do fast. And it's very important. And the verse I want to share with you is actually out of Matthew. Let's see, it's Matthew 6, 16 through 18. And we'll just get the Bible out here. Just a second. Let me see. Moreover, I'll do the King James Version. Moreover, when you fast, be not as the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear unto men. Just a second, I'm having a hard time reading this. Disfigure their faces, they may appear unto men fast. Verily, I say to you, they have received their reward. They have their reward. But thou, when thou fastest, anoint thine head and wash thy face, that thou appear not unto men to fast, but unto thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. And I'm actually going to read the Amplified version because it's right beside it. And whenever you fast, do not look gloomy and sour and dreary like the hypocrites, for they put on dismal countenance, that their fasting may be apparent and seen by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full already. But when you fast, perfume your head and wash your face, so that your fasting may not be noticed by men, but by your Father who sees in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you in the open. So I'm going to get down to another thing that I just thought of. So when you get in a habit of fasting, obviously you're going to have to tell your spouse, or you'll probably end up telling somebody. But my point is that could also be a lesson too. If you tell your spouse and explain to them why you're doing it, and then if your children ask, if they're old enough, you can explain that to them too. And that's another life lesson. Like that's a lesson, but that's also just a way of showing them that you're being disciplined and you're not just going to fall into temptation of food. And so you're teaching your children self-discipline through the way you interact with them and through the way they interact with that. And so I just wanted to add that. And another thing is just, guys, when you do this and you do tell that person, like that family member, now she knows, or she can tell when I'm fasting. But then others have started to take notice too, so be mindful of that. Because not that anyone really made fun of me or anything for it, but you might have people make fun of you for it or question why you're doing it, because not everybody is going to understand why, and that's okay too. You're going to have to accept that part of it when you do tell people. But I hope that you guys have found this helpful, and until next time, don't follow me, follow Jesus.